Oh, the humanity. I have no idea what's going on here, but I've stumbled across something and we're going to talk about it. I have no idea the veracity of this story, but it is a story. It's happened because numerous qualified, accredited journos are talking about it as if it has happened. This isn't to say, by the way, I preface everything that you'll see and hear over the next 10-15 minutes with this. This does not mean necessarily that Mercedes have been sabotaging Lewis Hamilton over the past couple of races season to date. Not necessarily, but it's a subject topic. Here's what's happened, and I'll play you some tape and you can see that I'm not lying. Somebody sent an email, like Jos Verstappen did, send an email to all of the accredited permanent. Among the F1 journos, there are a set that hold permanent passes, those who frequent each and every single race, Grand Prix, every single race weekend. Those guys have what they call permanent FIA passes or F1 passes. Those guys all have emails. Those are the guys that somebody, maybe Jos Verstappen, maybe not, take that for whatever it is. That was the email listing to whom were emailed the bloody Christian Horner pictures and videos and whatever all around the allegation. That was the distribution list. Again, all of these guys who hold the permanent passes will have emails. Somebody put them on a distribution list and sent all of the Christian Horner's pictures, and those are the ones that were distributed. Eventually they were always going to leak. Now somebody has sent something similar to aforementioned permanent pass holders via email. Speaking of Lewis Hamilton's sabotage, does this mean necessarily that this is true? Absolutely not, but it has happened, and journos, not necessarily UK based ones, but people are talking about it, so I figured I would bring it forth. Let me show you if you think I'm joking. But first, Exhibit A.
Paolo, volevi aggiungere una cosa?
Sì, nel senso che la banda delle lettere anonime ha colpito nuovamente, perché a tutti i giornalisti col pass permanente oggi è arrivata una mail e per conoscenza anche ai responsabili della comunicazione della FIA e anche al presidente Pensulaim con delle accuse circostanziate e ben precise nei confronti di Toto Wolff, che ha minacciato e sta boicottando Lewis Hamilton. Quindi il problema di base è: c'è qualcuno che sta fomentando sulla falsariga di quanto era già accaduto con il caso Chris Horner, ed è qualcuno che evidentemente ha accesso agli indirizzi email di tutti i giornalisti col pass permanente, quindi il database è solo ed esclusivamente a disposizione di qualcuno che A, o lavora nella comunicazione dei team, B, o lavora in ambito della federazione, perché soltanto loro sanno chi ha il pass permanente e chi invece ha il race by race. Ma poi soprattutto è una di quelle situazioni che tende a fomentare, a gettare delle ombre e a peggiorare dei rapporti, perché se fosse vero che la Mercedes ha boicottato Hamilton, ma non credo assolutamente, ha semplicemente puntato sul pilota che era davanti, e il pilota che era davanti era Russell, e quindi bisognava logicamente puntare su quello, non su quell'altro che sta dietro. Questo tenderà a peggiorare i rapporti o a creare un clima da caccia alle streghe, per cui diciamo che la tendenza della Formula 1 di quest'anno non mi piace per niente, perché questa storia delle mail anonime non firmate che gettano discredito, prima è stato su Horner, adesso su Toto Wolff, mi fa capire che c'è sotto qualcosa di poco pulito in un ambiente che avrebbe bisogno invece della massima trasparenza.
Okay, cool. Listen, so this guy from Automoto.it, an Italian publication, they've got 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. Whether that means that you can take this to the bank, I don't know. You've heard me say again a million, gazillion times for the avoidance of doubt that all F1 publications are made equally, but some are made more equal than others. I've never heard of these guys before, nor have I this journal. However, he says that it's happened. Does he trust it? Not necessarily. Has it come from a valid source within the team? Not necessarily. He doesn't know. But this email absolutely did go out. That much is true, because again, if you're going to put on your journalistic cap, you want to double check that this happened by two sources. Here's your second source. Julianne Serasoli, Brazilian F1 journo, she says, and again I'm reading the translation in the button here, just to be clear, this could have come from anywhere. It should not be taken as an allegation from within Mercedes or related to Hamilton himself. I'm just saying that it's very easy to get everybody's contact information and send them an email. But she's not disputing, by the way, for the avoidance of doubt, that this is an email that was sent and received. She continues, I think it's become fashionable. I just received an email complaining about Hamilton's treatment at Mercedes and asking me to ask the right questions and the truth will emerge. Quote, I have no idea where it comes from, but it seems with the emails of those who work at F1 are very public. Okay, so she's insinuating again, similar to our mate from Automoto.it. She's debating the veracity, questioning it even of the source. There's no way of telling who is this. Maybe per the Christian Horner videos and pictures, maybe they were salacious and came from an unreliable source. Maybe those pictures, maybe you can't verify them. Maybe they were all photoshopped. But here's the story, that this email was sent, and I'm not hearing publications talk about it in earnest. Make of that what you will. This again, for the avoidance of doubt, isn't me saying that Lewis Hamilton is being sabotaged. I don't believe it. That's not a thesis that I necessarily buy into, if I'm being honest. However, that this email went out, as confirmed by 2 F1 journos who have permanent passes, isn't up for debate. Who sent it? Again, speculation and conjecture. Maybe it was a Formula One fan. Who knows? And again, courtesy of Sim3744 on Twitter, who is a self-confessed Lewis Hamilton evangelist, but I digress. Let's check this one out now. This is what was said in the email, apparently, allegedly. Go on, let's look at this one first. Ask the questions and the truth will out. That sounds like a Lewis Hamilton fan, by the way, but nevertheless. It is all in the data and is recorded, with the exception of Bono, Lewis Hamilton's race engineer, and those of us who love Lewis. Yeah, that does sound like a Lewis Hamilton fan, doesn't it? And those of us who love Lewis, others are on dangerous course that could ultimately be life-threatening to Lewis. Other drivers, even public, a cold tire strategy is a death warrant. Oh, the humanity. As I'm reading it now, it feels and looks and smells like this has been sent, if not compiled, by a Lewis Hamilton fan. However, a source close to the scene told me, on the condition of anonymity, that he believed the email's contents were broadly accurate, and that there is a feeling emphatically denied by the team that Hamilton is being held back. He has been outqualified by Russell 8-1 this season and trails the younger Briton by 14 points. The email said some of us in the team are unhappy about the systematic sabotage of Lewis, his car, his strategy, his race strategy and his mental health. Lewis is excluded and some underhanded things are going on that some people need to be aware of. Oh, the humanity chat. What are we doing here? This is absolutely bonkers. Absolutely. Listen, I do not believe this. I've got to tell you, be honest and upfront when I'm talking about this. I don't believe for a second that Lewis Hamilton is being sabotaged. I argued on the shakedown just now with Chezinho and Baxty that potential sabotage is different, right? If Mercedes wanted to sabotage Lewis Hamilton, they could make his tyres go. There's a gazillion things that are very clear and obvious that they could do to Lewis Hamilton's car to make him DNF or DNS every single race. That for me is the definition of sabotage in this instance. What I think we're talking about here is favoritism. A Mercedes and Toto Wolff and James Allison not within their right, even if I put my Lewis Hamilton cap very firmly on, to favour or try to benefit George Russell, King George Russell of Kingsley and Norfolk, first of his name. He's the driver that's staying on next year. Look at me tearing up. I'm crying so emotional. No, I'm not crying. But this is techie now. It is chaotic that this has happened and no one is talking about it. And again, the reason behind that is because you can't confirm anyone The Brazilian journo and the Italian journo are right to doubt this, because anyone can get hold of a couple of emails and send out a couple of questions. But look, here's the crux of the matter. 2 further things I'm going to address, because it's techie. Proper conspiracy theory. Look at me with my tinfoil hat on. This is why I'm caveating at each and every single juncture, because I need to. I'm not a journalist, I'm a content creator, but integrity and professional accountability, code of conduct, is absolutely a thing for me as a guy with letters after his name. Financial, not journalistic, but I digress. Look, here's what I think. I think it would be only natural to expect, especially as we head towards the latter stages of this championship, to expect Mercedes, even if subconsciously, to favour one George Russell first of his name. If only because he's going to be the driver staying with them next year. Now, whether we've seen evidence of that already is up for debate. Could you argue that they might not have pitted Lewis Hamilton if they were acting in his own best interest, left him out in front of George Russell? Potentially. But listen, if you're thinking, F1 is a weird sport in that it's individualistic and both team perspectives. You need to think about both. This is a fine line to traverse, right, as far as a team and the drivers. Sometimes their priorities, objectives even, might be diametrically opposed. And I think at last weekend's Grand Prix, that was one of those instances. From a team perspective, it made sense for Lewis to pit for the fresh hards. From an individualistic perspective, he wanted to beat his teammate in George Russell. It would have made sense, therefore, for him to stay out. They told him to pit because obviously they've got their team cap on, and ultimately that led to him losing position to one George Russell, first of his name. From a Lewis Hamilton fan perspective, that might look like sabotage. It might feel and or smell like sabotage. But does that necessarily mean categorically, definitively, that was Mercedes sabotaging Sir Lewis? I'm not sure it does. Notwithstanding what we've just seen and heard and read, I don't think that it does. Not definitively, at least. Although to some it might look like that. Lewis didn't do himself or the tin hat foil conspiracy theorists any credit with his comments post-race and between quali and the race, saying to the effect, I don't know where my pace is going, I am SH1T hot in free practice, and then all of a sudden in qualifying the pace goes fugazi. It feels like they're turning down my machine, the temperature, the bloody tyre heaters aren't working. Like, what? The tyre warmers aren't warming up my tyres. You can attribute that to a dozen different things. Between free practice and quali, of course the temperatures cooled down, right? If Lewis drove quali in exactly the same manner, using the same characteristics and levers that he drove free practice, it wasn't going to work out. The temperatures were different, the winds had picked up and changed direction even. James Ellison spoke to this in his most recent podcast on the Beyond the Grid podcast with Tom Clarkson, and said that this tyre and chassis combination, it has a weird way. It's peculiar in its characteristics, in that if you're to drive fastest A to B, oftentimes it feels like you're not pushing the car. That's why you hear the likes of Yuki Tsunoda surprised when he's gone so fast. Max Verstappen too. It's happened a couple of times in the season when he drops it on pole and he's like, pole? Over the radio, he's surprised. He can't even believe that lap was quick enough to take pole, of course, courtesy of a couple mistakes from the other key protagonists, but he wasn't even pushing that much. James Allison attests to this, that sometimes the best way to get pace out of this car and tyre combination is not the most intuitive, counterintuitive even. The lap almost feels slow. I think Lewis is on the receiving end of some of that. I think that's the most likely scenario, as versus Mercedes sabotaging him. I wanted to bring it to you though. I saw that and people weren't talking about it. I haven't. That's the first I've heard of that. that message to all of the accredited permanent pass holding journos, and I think it's conversation worthy. Christian says, by default the data and strategy goes to George first. Like you said, unintentional perhaps, but that's a fact. Christian, how could it not, right? This is F1, billions of dollars on the line, millions. George Russell is the driver who will be a going concern for next year. Lewis is leaving, surely. Is it not reasonable to expect in a sport like Formula One that an entity such as Mercedes, AMG, Petronas would act in that way? I believe someone is trying to sow dissent at Mercedes since they appear on an upward trajectory. This is intrigue at play. Could it be Joss, Ryan allegedly pinging out that to again encourage, even effect discord in Mercedes ranks potentially? Who would have access to all those emails? I know the Brazilian journo, bless her, said that anybody can get... I don't think anybody can get access to all those emails. Surely you've got to be something of an F1 insider. Surely. Just a little bit. For it is chaos. Oh, the humanity. Colt. It does read like a Lewis Hamilton fan, doesn't it? As I read through it again, I read through it a couple of times before I submit it forth and made that decision to do that. But as I reread it, it does, it looks and feels, the wording, it sounds like a Lewis Hamilton fan. Maybe it could be a Lewis Hamilton fan from within the... I don't know, I'm speculating. I believe someone is trying to say it's chaos. Twitter is going to run wild with the contents. And again, look, I wanted to put it out there so you guys can see, courtesy of our mate Sim3744 at Sim3744 on Twitter. This has all come via that Twitter handle. It is chaos. I don't believe it necessarily. I will need more evidence for it to be definitive. Lewis Hamilton indeed has come out and he's tried to quell all this rumour and speculation, hasn't he? Directly. James Allison too used the words on that tweet. He said if you're going to talk about any systematic sabotage in his message, his podcast even with Beyond the Grid, Tom Clarkson, then he said it's nonsense. They have identical cars, Messrs Russell and Hamilton. Some people say that James Allison might be ever so slightly surreptitious, duplicitous in his thinking. I don't know. It's techie. Who's to say for sure, right? All I know that this is something, that email is something that has been sent. You can take that one to the bank. Who sent it? We don't know. Is there any truth in it? We don't know. That's when speculation and conjecture are rife. That's when they take over. But I digress, chat. It's too chaotic, this. I'm going to bed. My head... I thought, I was convinced that there was no sabotage, and I saw that and then I was like, whoosh. And now, no, you know what, I still don't think there is sabotage. But who knows? Who can be so definitive in all this? But I digress. Prosecution rests, no further questions, Your Honour.